All right, I'm going to jump right in. That way we have all the time for questions at the end. If that works.
Yep.
So you guys mostly know us in the moms group, Moms on a Mission right now on Facebook. That might be being updated in the next coming week. So watch for that change. We'll have all the announcements so you don't lose the group. Just a recommendation, you can go ahead and pin the group to like your favorite groups. That way you don't lose access. Well, like it's not hard to find. But we are coaching businesses for success. And you can find us on podcast everywhere, YouTube, on Facebook, wherever you're looking for your bookkeeping education, advice, community, we are there. During these calls, me and Megan both run our own bookkeeping businesses successfully. We still like them, we still keep them, and we share with you everything that's working or not working in our businesses. So if we're changing something, we might share it here. We're open books. So if you have questions, we answer those at the end of the call. So if something's not working in your business, feel free to run it by us and we'll give you our opinion. I truly believe if all you did was attend this call every week, you, in combination with your bookkeeping education, you could very well achieve your bookkeeping business goals. Obviously, if you want to shorten the time, all of those things, we have support for you as well. Teresa said this week, I am so happy. I just landed my highest recurring client to date, $874 a month. I owe all of this to CB4S. They have been an absolute game changer for me and my business. All of the mentors are very knowledgeable and take the time to understand your unique needs and issues. They have helped me break through limiting beliefs surrounding money and value and have given me the confidence to price my services to align with my goals. My business is thriving and I feel more confident and empowered than ever before. Thank you so much. And I love that. She said, price my service to align with my goals. Isn't that so important? Upcoming events, if you're looking to make sure that you're not missing free trainings or these weekly live calls, feel free to use this QR code to get access to our calendar link. And you can combine that with your calendar so that you know when those are coming up. Today, we wanted to talk about nurturing client relationships. And this I came up because we've talked in the past about how communication is so important in terms of, I'm like clicking buttons, guys. Can y'all tell? Communication is so important when it comes to talking to our clients, to keeping them long term. So on average, an accounting firm keeps their clients minimum of 3 years. Like on average, like the average retention is 3 years. You will find clients though will die with you. They'll stay with you for 6, 10 years. So I just onboarded someone who had been with their bookkeeper for 10 years, even though the bookkeeper was doing stuff wrong, even though they were filing their taxes incorrectly, like just a bunch of different things. They had stayed with them because that's who they knew and trusted to handle the bulk of their business. And the bumps along the way were worth it up until they weren't anymore. So how do we nurture client relationships well? How do we maintain that communication to ensure that we have some buffer? One of my college professors described that as, so I have a youth ministry degree. My bachelor's is in youth ministry, and then I have an accounting degree. So when I was going to college, my plan was to serve in youth ministry while getting paid to do church accounting. So that was my entire plan. That did not pan out. I changed my mind after I got my master's and went into like public accounting to really learn accounting. And here I am kind of doing exactly that. So he described it as like you have a jar, and every time you do a good thing to like your customer, so in that case youth ministry, the parents, the relationship there, you fill that jar. So you like fill that piggy bank with goodwill. So I did something right. That's goodwill. I got something right. I met a deadline. I invested in this relationship. And so I filled this jar up. Every time you do something wrong, you take from that jar, and you take more than that one act. So you have to have room in that jar to be able to have that leeway of, hey, client, I need to miss this deadline. I just got information from you. Because I got it later than I anticipated, we need to move this deadline back. Or, hey, client, it's tax season. Yep, you don't have financials. Like, whatever it is that's going on in your situation, that could even be, my kids are sick. I need to postpone our meeting this week because we scheduled a meeting. I'm so sorry, I can't make it. Because we never want to put ourselves in a situation where we're sacrificing everything we want to be accomplishing in life for our clients, but we need that goodwill. That goodwill, that jar is like essential to those client relationships. I just had something come up this week, and it's tiny, but I still think about that jar. This client I meet with every 2 weeks. Not a big deal. I did it mainly for onboarding because they're CPAs and they're super nitpicky. But also they don't know bookkeeping. So it's like, well, in QuickBooks, we're going to do it this way, but yeah, it'll still do that debit and credit, and all is good. So they give me leeway. They trust me as a bookkeeper for them. But I meet with them every 2 weeks because they have a lot of moving pieces. They have 2 companies together, and it's 2 CPAs. So it's like a entity and then like another entity it's weird. But anyway, there was a lot of moving pieces, and I needed to talk to them frequently. We were taking on their payroll, we were taking on their AR. So my solution, as Megan will convince me one day not to do, was to meet with them every 2 weeks to smooth that over. That turned into I would meeting them every 2 weeks for like all eternity, as long as they want that in their engagement. I am charging them for it as part of their engagement letter. They pay to meet with those. One day they may decide to stop paying me for those, and that would be fine. But they do pay me for them. And it's really helped with communication, which I have appreciated. So Monday was the first, and we went to go pull monthly statements. Most banks are like 90 days, and they want you to change the passwords on them. Not all, some do or whatever. So it was time to change our password when we pulled it. So we changed the password. Then there was like a glitch in logging in, and we got locked out. No big deal. It sends an email, we get a code, we got back in. All 3 of the owners on that account got an email that we'd gotten locked out of our account and that there was potentially fraud, like they were being hacked, and they shut our account down. And I got 3 phone calls, a text, and my husband finally answered one of the calls because I was on a call. I didn't even know these calls were happening or the texts were happening because I was on a video call. And he answers, hey, this is Tax Consulting. Can I take a message? Because he answered the work phone. And she goes, well, I couldn't get a hold of Sherry. And I'm like, it's been 30 minutes. What do you mean you couldn't get a hold of me? Nothing is an emergency. I never answer your call the first time. Like, that's been true the entire relationship. I'm like, I don't answer them. And I literally Kyle has the phone all day long. Like, I don't answer that phone. If client calls, he answers it. And just because I don't want to be on the phone. But and I'm often in these calls. So there was kind of a snafu, and I called her back and talked to her on the phone. And she was like, well, anytime you go to, she was annoyed that we changed the password and she didn't know. And I'm like, but how would we have to change it frequently? And she's like, well, next time you do that, please email me. I'm being sassy. Right. I'm being sassy. She doesn't really talk that way. But her and our personalities clash a little bit. We both know this, and we smooth it over. We're really respectful. We just know it. But we have a really good working relationship. But like personality wise, we're probably not going to be best friends, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Like, and I think the other owner has like smoothed it over for me. So I've had to invest a lot of time into this goodwill jar for this particular owner. And so I texted her back and I was like, hey, you might want to make sure we're accountant access, because it seems like we're user access if you got an email. Because normally with accountant access, the clients never know that we change our password. Like, we're changing it so frequently, it doesn't, if we get locked out or whatever, they never get an email. Their bank is limited, so we have like read-only rights, but it's like a user access instead of like an accountant access. It's a little funky with their bank. Still gives us what we need to do, still locks down the account, which is fine. So I sent her a text and then told her we would talk about it the following day, and she was good with that. So on the call, though, I did make an extra effort, A, to make sure I was super organized, B, like I knew all the questions and all of those things that we had for that week, but I also made sure I had done everything in advance that I could do so I could leave some time to chat on the call, like casual conversation. And in that casual conversation, I did make it a point to address the situation. Hey, don't forget, banks, because of security, because of all the fraud that's happening, and they're really fraud averse. Like, they're super scared anytime they see a transaction come through the bank that they don't recognize. It could be a charge from me. It could be their Intuit subscription. If for some reason they've looked at the bank and they don't recognize it, they like kind of freak out on me. And I just say, here's what it is, and it's no big deal. So that's one way I nurture that relationship. You can always decide you don't want a client that is this nitpicky. I would rather more clients like this who pay a little more for the service than a bunch of small clients who are like bad attitude galore, like, so I'll deal with I won't deal with rudeness, that I draw a hard line on, but I will deal with a business owner who is doing the best they can to run their business, right? Does that distinction make sense? And that they fall into that camp. They're trying to do their best to make sure that they're paying attention to their money and doing the best they can for their business. So they fall into that camp, which makes the little bit of back and forth okay. Because I think it's just personality. And sometimes you'll decide you don't want to work with someone whose personality clashes. There are times where but I think for me, I kind of just start to describe them as like a jerk. And I think that's where like the personality is really clashing, and that's when you let them go, because I think jerk is like a code word for our personalities are clashing. There would be other words for like a client who's just going to be rude to everyone in their sight. So with that, we talked about it. I reminded her that it's going to ping us like occasionally. I gave her an open item to check to see if we can get different access, if that's an option. She might have to call the bank because she asked me how. Because in her portal, they don't have the access. And then we talked a little bit about, I would add it to the SOP to text them if we change the password, which is annoying. But it's something I can do. That's pretty easy to do. But I did clarify, we might not always like remember to do that. Like, to give ourselves some grace, but like if we got locked out or something, we could make it a higher priority. So like I will probably tweak that SOP. Like if we get locked out, absolutely call the client. Like that would be like the hard line of like, the client is going to freak out. We know this, we can avoid a freak out if we're the ones calling before the bank is. So that's just something that came up this week that prompted me on like nurturing client relationships. I know for me, I have a couple of pillars. So as you're going along in your business, you will find, and I think it's really good to have some pillars in your business of, these are the 3 things I value. And these are the 3 things, and it can be more than 3, it can be less than 3, but these are like the 3 things that help my business operate well. And I can fall back to these 3 pillars when I'm tired of making decisions and I need to make a decision. One of those is communication. If I can communicate before the client has a question about a deadline, like if I can communicate before we missed a deadline, that would be preferred. If I can communicate first before the client has a question about a process or procedure or something like that, that's preferred. So client communication, if I can solve an issue before it's an issue, I want to communicate. And then that's also helped me decide on software. So I use Keeper.app. One of the reasons I started using Keeper and like heavily kept using Keeper was because I can ping the client on autopilot when we have questions for them. So that makes it look like we're doing the work super frequently, because we do the work frequently. But then if we're waiting on questions, it's not me, because it's right there for them. And I have a couple of clients that I'm like, we've been pinging you for questions for months that you haven't answered, and they fully know it. So they can't come back to me like you didn't ask for months, because they have an email trail of, we've had this outstanding question for 3 months now. It's delaying accurate financials for you. Like, it's very cut and dry. That helped me decide a software thing. And I have a couple of other pillars on like, don't nitpick in terms of pricing. I don't nickel and dime pricing. I don't nitpick the client, because I don't want them to do that back to me. I don't want them to nitpick my pricing back, and I don't want them to nitpick every little transaction. So like, I've encountered clients before who, I still have one client who does this, who like really nitpicks transactions, and not just like, I think this is coded incorrectly because, but just out of the blue, this is coded incorrectly. And you're like, this is where you told us to code it. We have this SOP. You told us on this date to like code it this way. Right. Like, and it's just like, they forgot what they told us to do, nitpicking, or just like jumping in for no reason. Right. So I want to prevent that, and I don't want to do it myself. And then I've got a couple of other pillars, but having pillars can help drive how you nurture, how you talk to. And that's in addition to, maybe you send clients a Christmas gift. Maybe you send them a box of chocolates. Maybe you send for your business anniversary, not their business anniversary, but for your business anniversary, like, hey, we're celebrating an anniversary gift to you. Here's a postcard. Here's a mug. Sometimes you can make it a little bit of an advertising expense, because you can brand it your brand, right? You're not going to buy the client something in their brand. If you send a mug, you're going to put your branding on it. Those are examples of nurturing client relationships. So anything that you can do to fill that jar, we want to keep that jar full. That way, if we have to pull out of it, it's like we've banked goodwill that we can pull out of. Because once that goodwill goes away, that's when you lose clients. And so we often see that with new clients, with bookkeepers who have taken on maybe 6 clients in like, let's say 60 days, Megan. We see that they haven't had time to build that jar. And they've got 6 clients now that are grabbing for their attention. And that's a lot plus whatever they had before. So they don't have that goodwill to bank on. That's where, for me, my pillar of communication trumps the goodwill. Does that make sense? So like, my communication often makes it so that I don't have to even dip in to the low amount of goodwill I even have, like the non-existent goodwill. So I don't know. Let me know if you guys have questions on that. That was my thought. Megan, do you have any stories, or how have you nurtured goodwill in your client relationships?
I mean, for me, a lot of mine are local. So some of them I'll meet in person, and we'll have in-person meetings periodically, and even like some networking events going together, and things like that. So stories, I'd have to think for a second.
You're okay. I put you on the spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, networking events, going in person, even in community. So like last week we were talking about being in community with your people, and that could be on Facebook. So sharing stuff like that and interacting with them on Facebook. Any positive interaction is goodwill. So you go to their Facebook page, you like something, right? Like they did. I have a client who builds gates. So like fabricates like gates and iron. My text is showing. Iron like frames, covers, all of those iron type works. Guys, I hate that word. But anyway, I really love them. Like, I'm like, can you do one for my air? The air vent that you have like in your house? got like a metal
Oh
cutter
yeah.
or whatever. He
Hmm.
could make one of those, but he typically makes gates and stuff. And I'm like, I really want to pay him to make one for our hallway because it like sticks out like a sore thumb, and you're like, it could be so pretty, like that. But we'll go comment. Me and Kyle both will. We've done this for years, which also helped me build a relationship before he became a client. But we'll go comment. We'll share, like, he's got a YouTube video too, because they make some really cool stuff. And so just that interaction of like reaffirming them as a business owner on Facebook is an example of building goodwill.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely. So I try to, if I see my clients that, especially the local ones, try to share their posts and stuff like that. I've seen some bookkeepers, and I haven't personally done it, but they'll do like a spotlight of like their client
Yeah.
on their page and stuff, like, hey, this is what they offer and whatever. And like every week or once a month or whatever, spotlight this one particular business. So that would be a good idea too.
I've never been like confident enough to do that since a lot of my clients don't come from Facebook, but I think that's a
Yeah.
good idea, especially if you look at other industries. So one thing I like to do in my business is, what are other industries doing well?
Yeah.
Mike Michalowicz's book called Get Different. I know it's been too long since I plugged him. Last week, I'm sure I plugged him. I think I plugged him last week. I'm 2 for 2. He has a marketing book called Get Different. And in that book, he talks about actually looking at other industries. And he described it better than I can. I've always done this, but I think he brought it into focus. And so I probably do it more now, where I look at another industry and say, what are they doing well? How could my industry be doing that? Like, how does it apply to my industry? And how can it benefit me to step into that? Does that make sense? Versus comparing ourselves to every other bookkeeper.
Yep.
Because like sometimes it's like, okay, what is my peer doing? Think about like school, like public school, or if you were in a like classroom situation. Susie's got on a pink dress and she's getting taught, friends. So I'm going to start wearing dresses or whatever, right? Instead of looking at what our peers are doing, what do we want to be doing? How can we stand out from the peers, right? So
Yep.
she's in a pink dress, everyone else is in blue, right? How can we get different enough to make a splash in, well, hopefully more than a splash, but like, I think some of that is how we nurture clients too.
Most,
Build
yeah,
relationships, build the business.
most definitely. And I mean, pay attention. Like one thing I've tried to do from the beginning is pay attention to like what got your attention with that client or when you purchase something, or because yeah, those would definitely be things you could bring to the table that would be make you stand out in your industry.
Yeah. And to add to that, if you're on Facebook, if you are in a funnel about to buy something, tell me I'm not the only one. I have found myself now pausing and being like, what about this funnel just got me like ready to buy? Like,
Well, and we talk about like email subjects. What made me click on that email to open it? Like, how did that get my attention? Like, so anything like that is like huge.
and it doesn't have to be in your industry. Sometimes it's just a product, like a
Right.
product came through. What got your attention? So there was something that came out on April Fools from someone I follow and support. I share her stuff occasionally. And she did the whole April Fools thing of, I'm closing my doors. But like, because I hadn't seen it yet that day, and actually it's the only time I saw it. I've seen it in years past, but it was the only time I saw it this year. I'm closing my doors. I thought she was dead serious. And I continued reading, and it was a coupon. So I 100% bought because it made me stop. But like, it made me laugh. I was like, I hadn't seen that. Yeah, that was totally an appropriate post. But it wasn't, it's been done so much in the past that a lot of people weren't doing it, or I didn't see a lot of my people doing it
Right.
on Facebook. So it caught my attention. It was different enough.
Yep.
So yeah, what makes you stop? And that was a product. So happened to be, I'm closing my doors, but email too. Why did you click on it? And I literally have a folder. I know one of our people also, like, she saves a folder on her desktop. She'll like print it and save it to desktop. I just save them in a folder on my computer. in my email folder that says like, just like emails, but you could put like good copy or good email examples, but it's like email examples, and I just code them in there.
Yep.
Sometimes if I know that the client, if that person that's sending the email, you could also filter. If you don't really want to see them, you could filter them to there. I try to only put them in there if they caught my attention, because then they were, so I don't do an automatic filter to those. But I have a couple that I've named, and these are their good emails that I have clicked on that caught my attention. But then I just have like a big folder of, here's the rest of them. But if I'm looking for like an email sequence, like, oh my gosh, this email sequence caught my attention, I'm going to go find that email sequence, because you can tell if it's like a 5-day sequence. I'm going to capture that sequence and I'll put it in their folder together. Sue says real quick, she liked the idea of pillars. And Sue's, I think there's a couple of ways you can do pillars. I think there's a couple of levels. There's your first pillar. Megan, is it Fix This Next by Mike Michalowicz? Doesn't he talk about pillars in Fix This Next too? It's like in chapter 2 or 3. I think he does, Suze, if you want to read it there. His is more like the pillars of why you're in business. So I think there's a couple of levels of pillars and things that you can think about for your company. So one, you have your business in general, what you're about. So you have the pillars of what you talk about. So on Facebook, if you're doing Facebook marketing, I'm going to use that one. I think is Fix This Next, where he talks about like, why are you in business? It's a good quick read. Yes, ma'am. My text is clearly showing. It's like a lot of.
He's from Texas too, though.
I know, but I don't know. Okay, my bad Texan. You only know I'm Texas if I'm like really excited or mad. My husband tells me, or he's editing my videos and he's like, "Chin, what is chin?" That's a word that it caught, and it was something about Facebook something, and I'm like, not Facebook, something on QuickBooks, chin, and I don't know how he figured out what I was talking about. He was obviously in the context of it, but I still don't know what chin means, like in the bookkeeping world. So you have like what your business is about. These are the things you talk about on Facebook. So I'm going to pick on Megan because she's got 3 really solid pillars on Facebook. She has like business and bookkeeping. She has mindset, and then she has family. And everything she posts or under those 3 pillars, Megan, I love how I've like studied you. I think did I say that right?
No, Suze, it wasn't. That was something Sherry's brought to my attention.
Yeah. But this is true. If you go back and look at like several years, like the last 3 years of Megan posting, those are the 3 topics she posts about. And I combine business and bookkeeping because she posts on both of those. And I think it's one topic. Then she posts on mindset, encouragement, spiritual, like encouragement. That's one pillar. And then she posts on, what she's doing with her family, because that's important to her. She does not post funny cat videos. She doesn't post pranks. She doesn't post what she ate for lunch. So she sticks to those 3 pillars. And so her Facebook has grown. She's popular. She's got followers, like, because everyone knows what to expect from her. If we saw what she's eating for lunch, we're going to be like, Megan, did you just get hacked? Because she doesn't do it. She doesn't post. I know, funny cat videos. Guys, I have a video of my dog eating and catching bubbles that I really want to post. Guys, I'm just kidding. Okay. I thought that was really funny. But so that's an example of pillars. So from those 3 things, that tells us a little bit about her business. Her business is talking to business owners who are working diligently. I'm not going to say hard. I'm going to say diligently at growing their business, which is why encouragement makes sense, because they might not have people before them who've taught them how to do business. They're like the self-starters. That also tells us her clients aren't very corporate in nature, likely. They're family focused. They're small businesses. They're the business that I'm going to walk it down the street to and buy from. Right. So that means she can build relationships with them. It also tells me that she's going to take vacations and have work-life balance. It tells me all of these things about her. But then as she looks at her pillars, she can kind of make her pillars based on that. Like, okay, so this is what I'm talking about. Now, how do I run my business? Megan, I don't know what your pillars are for your business, actually. I know what your pillars are for Facebook, but then from there, it's how do I want to show up in the business? One, I know she has integrity. So she's going to say right off the bat, like whatever, or she's going to bend over backwards to hold to her commitments. So pricing is going to be impacted by that. How she sets deadlines and communicates is going to be set by that. Yeah, I don't know what else, Megan, there, but like all of that comes together to have like a brand. So when you start talking about brand, it comes from these pillars, and it impacts everything you do, from literally from marketing down to how you send an engagement letter and how you send price increases out, how you disengage with a client when you disengage. Like it drives all of that. So yeah. So Sue, when you said, is it deliberate, to Megan, I'm going to pause there and then I'll click on the next slide, Megan. It shouldn't be deliberate. I bet you already have 3 things you're talking about. Are there going to be 3 extensions of who you already are? Maybe you found like a 4th one slips in every now and again. Does it really fall under one of the other pillars? If so, maybe we need to rethink that pillar on Facebook just a little bit to make it make sense. Because you're telling a story at the end of the day. Your business is telling a story, your life is telling a story. And we just want to make sure we don't confuse our audience, which is why she doesn't post funny cat videos, because that would be confusing to her audience. Like it would distract them versus like bring them along with her on her journey.
And one thing that I saw like from the very beginning of my business was like the motivational, the mindset stuff. That's always been something that's kind of interests me and that I've always posted. So when I first started having conversations and adding business owners and stuff, that was something that a lot of them brought up, that they really connected with those types of posts. So you're in a sense attracting people who are like personalities, who have things in common, who you know you're going to be able to build a good relationship with, and those things. So like Sue, you said you love funny cat videos. There's nothing wrong with that. Like post that. Now you're going to attract other people who have a similar personality, who you have that in common with, those types of things. So I think that's very important. Like don't do necessarily what we're doing, or do something that's you're gonna be able to relate to. You're gonna be able to have those connections with these potential clients or your clients that you currently have, and those types of things for sure.
I was just thinking, we have someone who is niched into like pet spaces, daycares, things like that. Funny cat videos would make 100% sense.
Most definitely.
But I think there's still a way, because like when you send an email out, like one of my corporate positions, like there was a group that would send memes out and they were always cats. Like it was like a thing, but you can make it a thing with your business.
Yeah.
Like I was just looking at podcast covers last night, looking at something. And do you guys know, I learned it from Erica on like TikTok. Bummer.
No.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to go look it up though.
She tells like tips and stuff. And so, but as she has grown her TikTok, she's made this brand of like where she's whispering and she goes, you heard it here first or whatever. Well, her podcast cover is her doing that. And it's become like a signature trademark of her brand. So if there's something like that you can get a kick out of, or you get a response out of, we can embrace those things. And that's where Get Different comes in. Right. And so I would put some effort into how do we bring this all together? So it's, nurturing clients is essential to longevity with clients. But we can, as we start to think every aspect of our business and think through all of those things, why do we do what we do? What is driving those processes? Because as you grow, decision fatigue is real. And if you can lean back on, well, this is what our pillar says, and you've at least identified them. I don't have mine written down, but I still have them. Like, I've thought about them. So I fall back onto, so the top two are communication, communicate first, and don't nitpick. Those are my top two pillars. Like, obviously, equal weights and measures is one of them. And those are probably my three. Those are the three I say the most. I should probably write them down too. But those are the three I say the most. Like, me and Kyle both, like, these, like, he knows these are the three things that are important to me. Yeah, there's a couple. Yeah. So those are two of mine. And then communication. Like, just prioritize communication above all else. So those are my three that I like can lean back on to make pricing decisions, to how do I handle this with a client? Is this bugging me enough? Like, so is it nitpicking? Did I communicate first, or should I have communicated first? Does that make sense? So, like, I can fix processes and procedures based on those three things. I'm sure I probably need another one. But those have just been the three that I've used probably for the last 3 years that have just made it easier to make decisions, consistent decisions where I don't have to think that hard anymore on, oh, I'm going to do it that way. It also comes out when I'm doing sales calls. So I will start to use those language sometimes in sales calls to say, oh yeah, we work this way. We have a policy of, typically to answer questions, like if they're asking me a question. So run with it. Okay. We have one more. Lonnie shared, so thankful to have the support of all the coaches in CB4S. Running a bookkeeping business isn't easy with so many different situations. Okay, case in point, that can arise that I haven't run into before, whether it's a payroll issue, an e-commerce client with software I'm not familiar with, or I just need help troubleshooting. There's sure to be a coach who can help. Additional support with marketing and mindset, co-working calls, and flexible times to schedule one-to-ones. Help are just a few more of the reasons how the group has helped me continue to run a successful bookkeeping business. Thank you, Lonnie, for those kind words. She's killing it, guys. So I just wanted to share those from this week. We had a lot of feedback this week. It was really cool. Megan, do you have anything to add? I think the invite was sent out if you guys wanted to schedule a call for the Bookkeeper Blueprint, if you guys wanted more information on that or had questions there. And then bundles and one-to-ones, those are available. Do we want to put the link to the coaching call, the calls in?
I also wanted to, I think Brad is watching on Facebook. It looks like maybe he commented on one of our older lives just a few minutes ago. A question I kind of answered like on the comment, but I thought maybe we could just touch on it a little bit since we have a few more minutes. Question: when I post on Facebook, I post on my timeline. Would it be better to post as an example to business owner groups on Facebook? So Brad, I would do both. In part, like if you're posting on your timeline, do you have business owners on your timeline? Like, have you been sending friends requests out to business owners and stuff? Because yes, your friends that you're on Facebook with right now, they're going to be seeing it and stuff, but you'll get in front of way more business owners if you're posting in the groups and stuff. So I would do both, but be aware of the rules of the groups, because some of them don't want you advertising. They don't want things along those lines. So just be aware of what the rules are specifically to the group. Some of them you can post like tips, but they may not want your business name on it. Some of them have certain days where you can advertise and do whatever you want in there on this certain day. And some don't have any rules at all. They don't care what you post. So just kind of be aware of those things, because you might get kicked out or banned or whatever from the group if you're posting something you shouldn't be. So.
Good tips. And feel free to experiment with what you're doing on Facebook. Some people are really good at doing short videos. Sharing cat videos, short cat videos would be, something to engage people or to draw people to you. That way they see more of your other posts. So that's where sometimes Suze or Brad having a different pillar that you post to. So Megan does family. When I post family, I get all the eyes on it, right? But those eyes, when I post business, also see the business. And so it kind of works to keep that engagement going. So I do think one of your like pillars should be something enjoyable, something non-business related. Or so Megan kind of has two of her pillars that aren't business related. The encouragement, though, lends itself to both. It can be some business encouragement, some family encouragement, just like, I got out of bed today. Like, if that's you, like, so she could make some funny stuff within that pillar of encouragement because it's flexible. So funny cat videos can maybe fall in a pillar that aren't necessarily funny cat videos. Does that make sense? It's like entertainment. Like I'm going to make you laugh. What is the objective behind posting that funny cat video? Or we have fun here. So I got my first bookkeeping client in 2015. It was more like a job, but my first like contractor role. I literally got, because in my cover letter, I said, I'm looking for a fun job. No joke. And I got the job because she was hiring a bookkeeper, but she's a coach at that time before coaches were like really a thing. And she didn't want a boring accountant working for her. So score. So maybe you're not a boring bookkeeper and you're going to post funny cat videos. So I would work with, how does that work in your story? And how is it like an opposition to what people are expecting?
Yeah.
Any other questions? And Suze, I'm sorry, I'm picking on you because you answered. But other things. Oh, so on Facebook, we talked about last week, just to recap, Brad, if you're listening, about how to not just stay. Yeah, I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm just using I love the question. How we talked about communication or community last week on how to bridge Facebook and your community together. Or was that the week before? One of the last 2 weeks. Or we've talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Last week. And so we talked about marketing a little bit, but we added in like, how can you bring in your in-person community into that Facebook community? But I wouldn't box yourself into one thing. I think early on, really in those first 3 years of a business, you should be experimenting with what you like, what you don't like, and not just saying, so-and-so said to do this, so I'm going to do it. You might, unless they've given, like, you've hired them to give you like a play-by-play. So like if you're in Cameron Montgomery's program, he gives you a play-by-play. Execute the play-by-play while you experiment, right? Don't play like, well, I half did it. We don't want to half do any program that we sign up for because we're not going to get the results that we're signing up to get. Does that make sense? But in addition to that, maybe you want to do an in-person training for realtors. Maybe you want to go meet with all the realtors and they do lunch and learns. Maybe I want to do all of those. And I'm going to create a post on Eventbrite saying, hey, I'm doing an event, right? Or maybe I want to play with a podcast. Maybe I want to start a networking group on Facebook and bring all the business owners to me. Right? Like what else can you do there? If you're wondering what to do, like, I think it's okay to brainstorm all the things that you could do. I just don't try to do all the things.
Right.
I would limit yourself to like two to three things, and I would make them work together. So like email marketing, Facebook, I can talk about the same thing, and I could do a YouTube video. Those are those are three things, or an event, right? Like I would trade out the YouTube video for, do Facebook, email. Those two we recommend 100%, by the way. So I would do those two at like bare minimum. Facebook, bare minimum. Email, once you get that settled. And then one other thing, maybe that's like Megan doing videos on Facebook or a podcast. And with podcasts, can I just give you guys permission, if you do a podcast, that they do not have to be hour-long podcasts like this? I was thinking about this morning. I was scrolling through my podcast, and there's a podcast that I love, but it's an hour-long chatty podcast, and I just don't, my brain can't do it for them for some reason. But there's another podcast that's like 5 minutes long, sometimes 30 minutes, and it's super to the point, like it's all information. I can do that one. So
Yeah, Sue says she likes 15 to 20. Yeah, those always work out. I feel like that works for me, especially even when like I'm driving to school or something like that. If I can put it on in the car and listen to it, but if I have to stop it, and then I usually don't pick it back up. So yeah, short's usually better sometimes, depending on what I'm doing.
Debbie, it was nice to see you. Glad it was helpful. We love seeing you. I think that's it for today, unless any other questions come through in the next 30 seconds. So in the next couple of weeks, we have a couple of guests that are going to come on. So on the 18th, we have a guest if you're concerned about work-life balance, just how to manage that. She's one of those saints that are just amazing at doing all the things. I forget what next week is. Have we talked about it? Oh well.
I think the roundtable marketing.
Oh, right. We've got a plan for marketing if you're struggling on marketing. So always marketing here. Always marketing and tips. So well, we will see you guys next week. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Yep. Bye.